So just to wrap things up with the eighth house, which is Scorpio, I believe that the letter M is going to be important in this case. It could be the first letter of the last name, something of that nature. Something about the letter M will be significant. The Scorpio glyph looks like an M with an arrow at the end. All right? And so I believe that symbolism will come out as being important. Also, Scorpio is associated with rapists, child molesters, the underworld, the mafia, debt collectors, things of that nature. So anything that is, I don't know, bad and undesirable can be associated with Scorpio. It's not all bad, though, because Scorpio is also about regeneration and rebirth. And so transformation also, which can be a positive in some cases. But when we're looking at things through the crime filter, it's normally the bad stuff. Okay, now we're going to look at the natural ninth house, okay, which is ruled by Sagittarius. All right, and Sagittarius is ruled by the planet Jupiter, and Jupiter usually represents luck, but you know, in the context of crime, Jupiter and Sagittarius is about the legal system in general, the justice system, not actually the police and the military, but the actual courtroom part of it would be represented by Sagittarius and kind of Libra also. But let's take a look at Sagittarius because there are some interesting things going on here. Okay, in red we see the ascendant for the 911 call is at 26 degrees Scorpio, which begins the first house of this whole thing, which is the eighth house, right, which is the underlying natural house. All right, so we have this ninth house here, which is actually our first to second house, is the overlay with the 911 call. Now, something interesting here is going on at 1 degrees Sagittarius. All right, we have the composite Mercury at 1 degree Sagittarius. Okay, and we have a fixed star Corniferous at 1 degrees, and they are conjoined together, the Mercury and the Corniferous fixed star. Now, the fixed star Corniferous is associated with dangerous passions. Okay, and something interesting about this particular degree in astrology is that several serial killers that I've studied, Charles Manson, Ted Bundy, and a few others, had a little something going on, usually around the 1 degree or 2 degree mark or degree of Sagittarius. And so I believe that is significant. And so for the composite, this starts the 10th house at 5 degrees. Okay, and I'm going to look at what's also here in this particular sign and house. Okay, we have the randomly chosen suspect in green. We have the Neptune at 12 degrees Sagittarius, and it's conjunct or conjoined to the victim's Saturn at 14 degrees Sagittarius. In the 10th house composite, the 9th house natural, and let's see, we also have in the composite, we have the sun at 10 degrees. The sun at 20 degrees and the Venus at 21 degrees. So they are conjunct in Sagittarius. All right, and then we have the victim's moon at 26 degrees Sagittarius. And we have the second house cusp starting at 27 degrees Sagittarius. All right, so that's what we have in that particular house as far as the missing person in violet, the randomly chosen suspect in green, the composite in black, the fixed star in orange. And so now we're going to move on to the next. So let's take a look at the natural 10th house. The second house of the 911 call is starting at 27 degrees Sagittarius, and it's going to 3 degrees Aquarius. All right? So the underlying natural house is Capricorn, which is associated with the 10th house, which is associated with things like things that are well known, fame, career, work, that sort of thing. All right, and all things that are associated with Capricorn. Now, we have the Pluto of the 911 call at 26 degrees Capricorn, which forms a square to the randomly chosen suspect's sun at 26 degrees. Now, squares are challenging or harsh aspects. Okay, so I think that it's worth noting. All right, and the missing person or the victim here in violet looks like she has sort of a stellium here. All right, which is in the second house of the 911 call, the 10th house as far as the natural house goes. She has Venus at 14 degrees, Pluto at 16 degrees, and Mercury at 19 degrees. And now we'll look at the third house of the 911 call, okay, which is actually the 12th house in the composite chart. And the underlying house is the 11th house, which is Aquarius and ruled by Uranus. All right, we have the third house starting at 3 degrees. We have the Saturn of the 911 call at 12 degrees Aquarius. And we have the sun of the victim at 15 degrees Aquarius. So she is an Aquarius, okay, born February the 4th. So another area of interest for me is the 12th house. The 12th house, as I said before, is ruled by the sign of Pisces, the planet Neptune. It's associated with loss, sorrows, troubles, secrets. Of course, it's a water sign represented by 2 fish. All right. Now, so it's the 12th house, but in the 911 call, it's associated with the 4th house cusp for the 911 call. What's interesting about the 4th house is the 4th house represents the home, the mother's side of the family. Now, I'm not implicating family. I want to make that perfectly clear. As a matter of fact, I'm not getting the feeling that family is involved at all. So anyway, what's interesting about this is it also represents the end of a matter. Okay, and here we have the victim's Neptune falling into the 12th natural house at 8 degrees, okay? And we have the Jupiter at 2 degrees, and that's the Jupiter for the 911 call, also falling into the 12th natural house. So, this pretty much means, someone is missing, someone is lost, okay? And it is, I believe this Neptune represents the missing person, of course. And so also we have Chiron at 18 degrees. Now Chiron can represent healing, but it's also where you find your enemies is in Chiron sometimes. And it's in the 12th house. It's not a good place for Chiron to be. All right. And then right here we have the 911 call, Neptune at 23 degrees. All right. We're going to look at the first natural house, which is ruled by Aries and Mars. Okay, and the color associations are red and white. Okay, there are color associations. There are also location associations such as cities, countries, etc. That is why the birth time is important as far as locating someone who is missing, because of the associations with the places that happen when the chart gets moved by birth time. Okay, so anyway, in the first house, we have the midpoint or counter midpoint at 2 degrees Aries, okay, which means that the other midpoint or counter midpoint is at 2 degrees Libra in the seventh. Okay, so we also have the fifth house starting here in the 911 chart at 9 degrees. Also, in the 911 chart, we have Chiron at 12 degrees. We have the victim at 17 degrees with Uranus there. And we have the randomly chosen suspect with the Chiron here. That's the symbol for Chiron at 29 degrees. Now, what's interesting about 29 degrees is that it's known as a critical degree. I'll get more into that later. I'll explain what a critical degree is, but 22 degrees and 29 degrees are critical degrees. Now we're going to look at the second natural house, which is ruled by Taurus and Venus, and Taurus is also co-ruled by the Earth. So Venus and Earth rule Taurus, the bull. All right, and what we have here is the natural second house. The 911 call, the cusp of the sixth house starts here in Taurus at 5 degrees. The Uranus of the 911 call is at 13 degrees. The counter midpoint / midpoint of the victim is at 16 degrees Taurus and also at 16 degrees Scorpio. So there's a midpoint and a counter midpoint, and they're always going to be across from each other. All right, and we have the cusp of the seventh, which has to do with the perpetrator. The seventh house cusp represents them. It's in Taurus, as I stated earlier, at 26 degrees, which is associated, as I said earlier, with cardinal signs, Capricorn, Cancer, Aries, and Libra. Okay. Still in the second house in Taurus, we have Jupiter at 28 degrees Taurus, and it's in green, so that represents the randomly chosen suspect. Okay. Now we're going to go to the natural third house, which is ruled by Gemini. Okay, and the third house in this case goes from, it starts the seventh house at 26 degrees Taurus. Okay, and then the eighth house starts at about, 25 degrees Gemini. Looks like it got kind of rubbed off there. And so Gemini, of course, is the twins. It's represented by Mercury, short trips, transportation, communication, cell phones, gadgets, that kind of thing. Those are all ruled by Gemini, okay? And the North Node, which has to do with destiny, is in Gemini at 10 degrees, and this happens to be representing the 911 call because it's in red, okay? And the Mercury of the 911 call is at 17 degrees Gemini, okay? And with the composite chart, the fourth house starts at 5 degrees, okay? So here we go. We're going to go on to the fourth natural house, which is Cancer. Cancer is about the home, mothers, children, and the end of a matter, that sort of thing. Okay, and again, I'm not implicating any family. As a matter of fact, I believe just the opposite. I don't believe the family was involved. So we have at 16 degrees Cancer, we have Venus. The Venus of the 911 call is at 16 degrees Cancer. Cancer is a water sign represented by the crab, of course. Okay, and in the composite chart, it starts the 5th house at 4 degrees. Okay, now we're going to go on to the 5th house, the 5th natural house. It starts the 9th house of the 911 call at 2 degrees, and there's Mars there at 2 degrees conjunct the 9th house cusp. Okay, and Leo can have to do with the authorities. Okay, it's associated, the 5th house though is associated with fun and recreation. It also represents children, okay, and fathers, okay, because of the sun representing the father. Okay, but like I said, I'm not implicating family at all. I'm just talking about what these signs and symbols represent. That's all I'm saying. All right. Now, we have Saturn. The Saturn of the randomly chosen suspect is here at 15 degrees, and it's in direct opposition of the victim's sun at 15 degrees Aquarius. Okay, so there's an opposition here between the Saturn and the sun of the victim and the randomly chosen suspect. All right. Also in Leo, for the 911 chart, we have the moon at 27 degrees, which lines up with about August 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, somewhere in that area. And so that, I believe, will be significant because the moon represents preschool age children. All right. So, and she was very close to being preschool age. All right. Now we're going to move on to the natural 6th house. Okay. It is the 10th house. The 10th house cusp can be found there for the 911 call at 8 degrees Virgo, which is conjunct, which is a harsh aspect, to the randomly chosen suspect's moon at 7 degrees Virgo. All right. So there's a 10th house cusp and moon conjunction there between the 911 call and the randomly chosen suspect. And then here we have the 7th house cusp of the composite chart falling at 11 degrees Virgo. All right. So here we have the victim's north node, okay, and we have it falling in Virgo at 22 degrees.